Welcome to the Rudick Report. Today is Monday, April 3rd, 2023. If you can, please support this channel by buying me a cup of coffee or by visiting my affiliate links. Your help is greatly appreciated and helps us to continue to provide content. The U.S.'s dollar's time as the world reserve currency is coming to an end. We know that no world currency can last forever, so it's not a matter of if, but when the dollar loses its dominance. There are a few issues facing the dollar's dominance in the world economy today. They include the fact that the dollar is no longer backed by gold and its value has been degrading rapidly since then. Our countries continue to rack up debt and we play the game of currency devaluation. And of course, let's not forget that our leaders run the printing press 24/7, which only increases our debt, raises inflation, and devalues our money. Countries around the world that trade in the US dollar have seen several events in the past that has caused them to contemplate moving away from the dollar. They see that if any one of them steps out of line and does not follow the rules as set forth by the United States, then they run the risk of sanctions being placed on their respective economies. Meanwhile, here in the United States, we just continue to print away crisis after crisis. Clearly, the BRICS nations, which include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have had enough of the U.S. hegemony and have begun the process of bypassing the U.S. dollar. These countries alone represent about 40% of the world's population. Countries around the world have grown tired of being bullied by the United States and being forced to trade in US dollars. This arrangement has given the United States a huge advantage over all countries in the world. When things get a little dicey financially, we print our way out of it, devaluing our dollar little by little over time, with the burden of repayment put on the backs of its citizens. The BRICS nations are coming together, organizing, and cooperating on economic issues that is being noticed around the globe. Argentina, Iran, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Egypt, Thailand, Indonesia, Nigeria, Senegal, and Saudi Arabia and Turkey have also shown interest in BRICS, and the list is growing daily. The economy of the United States is on the verge of collapse, with the continuous printing of money that is losing its value as we speak. With the gold standard no longer being used, the only reason we are holding on financially is because we are the world's reserve currency. There have been several warnings over the years, but in our arrogance, we have ignored those warnings. Recently, another announcement sent shockwaves through the financial world to those who are paying attention. And that announcement was that according to the Brazilian government, China and Brazil have reached a deal to trade in their own currencies, ditching the United States dollar entirely. The deal, Beijing's latest move against the dollar, will enable China, the top rival to U.S. economic hegemony, and Brazil, the biggest economy in Latin America, to conduct their massive trade, which amounts to $150 billion per year, and financial transactions directly, exchanging yuan for reals and vice versa instead of going through the U.S. dollar. In doing so, China extends its bilateral USD exempting currency arrangements beyond countries such as Russia, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia to now include Latin American exporting powerhouse. In another announcement, to safeguard Indian trade from the impact of the Ukrainian crisis, India and Malaysia have also agreed to settle trade in the Indian rupees, the Ministry of External Affairs announced on April 1, 2023. The shift away from US dollars, which has been the dominant reserve currency for international trade, indicates that India is willing to take concrete steps towards de-dollarization of its international trade. Following years of abusing its reserve currency status, the United States now faces a growing wave of global de-dollarization, as many of the largest and most populous countries on the planet are banding together to launch a US dollar alternative to be used in global trade. State Duma Deputy Chairman Alexander Babakov is encouraging the creation of a new common currency between Russia, India, and other BRICS nations to push back against USD dominance. If enough of the global community bypasses the dollar and we lose world reserve currency status, then the US money would just be about worthless. So what happens when the dollar collapses? A currency collapse is when the country's currency loses value and becomes practically worthless in day-to-day use. Typically, a currency collapse is caused by political or economic upheaval, hyperinflation, or even war. If you compare these reasons, it looks like the United States checks off most of the boxes. Here are some likely scenarios during a dollar collapse and how we should prepare. In regards to bank runs, Americans will want to get their money out of the bank as the value rapidly drops, to either invest in other currencies or to get precious metals while they can still use the dollar to do so, or even to buy food and necessities to last long enough for the initial shock waves to pass. It may make sense to take some money out of the bank and have it on hand so that you won't have to wait in lines when it does happen, or find that if you do eventually get to an ATM that it's out of money. The government may also implement capital controls. It's important to act now, because if the government implements capital controls, then they would prevent private citizens from converting their dollars into foreign currency to protect the dollar from falling further. They truly don't give a damn about you or your problems. They will implement these controls to control the collapse, all at your expense. With all this going on, unemployment could rise dramatically as manufacturers find it impossible to purchase needed parts from other parts of the world, which would increase in price dramatically, forcing them to close their doors or limit their staff to bare-bone numbers. Add to this the fact that the United States basically has no manufacturing base anymore, since we have outsourced everything. Imported goods would cost more, so Americans, we would be paying significantly higher prices for everything. There would also be supply issues with food as well, because the cost of purchasing food is tied in large part to the price of oil, which would now have to be purchased with expensive foreign currencies. The price of food would skyrocket. I have always encouraged my listeners to buy a little extra food whenever they visit the grocery store and to store it away. It is a wise and responsible thing to do. If the economic collapse begins to accelerate, having extra food put away would reduce your stress level somewhat, knowing that you don't have to wait in line for food, or having to pay 4 or 5 times the amount for the same items. Putting some food away now, what's the worst case? You have some extra food lying around that you're going to eat anyway. And of course, let's not forget civil unrest. In an extreme case, martial law could be enacted because people would lose their minds if money or food or necessities were not available. Prepare yourself. Get in shape, stay in shape. Prepare mentally and physically for this eventuality so that you are not blindsided by these events when they occur. Just think what people do when power goes out for a little bit. They raid these large stores and start walking out with TVs or any other item that they want. People will lose their minds if the dollar collapses. The bottom line is the collapse and death of the dollar is coming much sooner than anyone forecasted. With multiple countries with huge global economies now working together to eliminate the US dollar in trade, and also with the BRICS nations expanding and working towards the creation of an alternative currency, the dollar's days of being the world reserve currency are coming to an end. This is not financial advice, but it may make sense to get some extra food, extra water, get cash for emergencies in case there is a run, and if possible, get out of debt and move some money to precious metals. There are many reputable companies to buy from. They include JM Bullion, SD Bullion, and Money Metals, but you can use whoever you think is best. But just take some action before you can't. Thank you for listening, and until next time, this is the Rudick Report.